Okay, everyone. So yeah, I am Hawis Madupa. So I am from Department of Marine Science and Technology, Faculty of Fisheries and Marine Sciences, IPB University. So thank you, Marika and Luminations, to inviting me to talk about marine bioinvasions research in Indonesia. So I'm strengthening in the refill by molecular studies. So even Marika has introduced me. So I am graduated from IPB University, and I pursued my PhD at the University of Bremen. So right now I am the head of Marine Biodiversity and Biosystematics Laboratory at IPB University. So my research interests are related to marine biodiversity, ecology and biology of marine fish, population genetics, DNA barcoding, eDNA, fish habitat rehabilitations, and using fish or biota as biological indicator. So you can find me in this social media. So I'm making collaborations between national and international, including like embryo, enhancing marine biodiversity, research in Indonesia at IPB University. So I'm also Whale Shark Indonesia. It's a startup from Indonesian students. I'm also invited as a PI at the Autonomous Reef Monitoring Structure (ARMS), and now I'm developing a startup laboratorium called Oceanogen. And I'm also together with the young scientists in Indonesia, elected at ALMI Akademi Ilmuwan Muda Indonesia, Biorock Indonesia for Rehabilitations, and Diversity of Indo-Pacific Network. And just recently, we are establishing Indonesian Marine and Fisheries Genetic Network. So these are some books that we are published since 10 years ago. So including Banda Naira, where Marika located. I hope that, yeah, this is some books. And yeah, introduction. Right now, we know that the coral triangle has more coral reef diversity than anywhere else in the world. So we are in the center of marine biodiversity. So uh, we have 76% of the world's coral reef species found in the coral triangle, and 37 of the world's coral reef fish species, and 56% of the coral reef fishes in the Indo-Pacific regions. And we also have like the world 7 marine turtle species found in the coral triangle. So why we are like doing research in Indonesia? Because Indonesian's coral reef right now have undergone rapid and widespread changes, and this is continue to face severe threats in various part of the country, and many of the destructions coming from overfishing and pollutions. This is threaten like more than 90% of all Indonesian coral reefs. Another factors is actually like the shipping activity. You see, like in the white dots here is the shipping activities occurs in the Southeast Asia. The shipping activities is one of the factors for species transfer through ballast water and fouling. And we know that the Terpia sacinota already occurred in the Thousand Islands located here in Jakarta, in Jakarta Bay, Seribu Islands. So this is happening right now. So what is actually invasive species? So we need to know what are they, why we should care, because probably related to like ecological concerns, human, plant, and animal health, probably related to economic concerns. And the invasive species are probably like divided into 4 terminologies, including like invasive species. This is related to exotic and threat to native species. And exotic species, this is coming from another part of the world. Introduced species like implies introductions but not a threat. And alien species is implies introductions to a particular ecosystem. So this is the figures. This is the conservation status of more than 12,000 IUCN assessed marine species. So only 10,000, more than 10,000 are in the category other than data divisions, an adequate level of assessment. This is coming from the IUCN 2018. This represents 4.2% of currently described marine species from the world of registered marine species uh, from 2018, and only between 0.5 and 3.3% of the estimated total marine species. Of the assessed species, like around 11% are either critically endangered, uh, and or vulnerable, and are thus considered threatened with extinction. And the taxonomic distributions of marine species threatened with extinction, as defined by classified like CR, EN, or PU, of this assessment, 64% are species from well-described groups. Like this is from wait my pointer. So this is the IUCN threatened with extension. So we have like more than 1,000 species already. So the relative importance of various anthropogenic stressors to species threatened with extinction, as shown here in figure A, showing like critical endangered, and also vulnerable. And the figure B, the average number of anthropogenic stressors affecting species threatened with extensions for various taxonomic groups. Like several taxonomic groups with low number of species threatened with extensions pulled under other for visualization purposes. So this is the things as you can see, and you see that the rather blue bar is actually the invasive species. So this is the figure for the distributions of anthropogenic stressors faced by marine species threatened with extinctions in marine regions of the world. Sorry, this is heavy rain here in my place. So I think you will be missing the rain in Bogor. So yeah, this is the figures showing the anthropogenic stresses. And the percentage of under 10% here, you see the invasive species I show you here, like Indian Ocean it's like around 12%, and in the Pacific Central around 12%, and quite more than 10% across the globe. So what allows invaders to invade is actually like only some novel species will survive and establish self-sustaining populations in the novel habitat. And a subset of these species may not only survive, but become invasive, dominating the new community, and even causing the extinction of natives. But what actually allows a species to become invasive? So probably first is broad environmental tolerance. Like they possess life history traits that confer superior colonizing ability to acclimate to a wide range of habitats. So probably like they are bringing from the ballast water, and then they already like adjusted for several times, and due to their biological characteristic, they already have like a broad environmental tolerance. And the second is related to local adaptations. This is like they are readily adapt to local selective pressure. So these two factors allow invaders to invade. So this is the figures showing the plasticity and adaptive evolution will to lead greater invasiveness. As you can see here, when they introduce to uh, a certain habitats, they are going to be naturalized, and then they will have like a local adaptations, and this is the time that whether the species will become invasive or like adjusted to become introduced species on that population. So why we are like concerned about the invasive species, because they have actually impact of in the biodiversity. So as you can see here, like the global changes will affect biodiversity, including because many like abiotic process control the impact and to due to the habitat. So what is actually the government in Indonesia doing with invasive alien species? So there are legislation actually related to these invasive species. First is actually the relevant legislations include government regulations number 14 2002, and there is another law number 16 since 1992 related to animal, fish, and plant quarantine, and the government regulations in 1999 on environmental impact assessment, and another one, Act number 5, 1990, on conservation of biological diversity and its ecosystem. And there are some government agencies, programs, ministries dealing with the invasive alien species. First is Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Second is Ministry of Marine and Fisheries Affairs. And the third one is Ministry of Agriculture. This is related to National Plant Protection Organization and Agriculture Quarantine Agency. But the quarantine right now is also, we have like a fisheries and marine quarantine under Ministry of Marine and Fisheries Affairs. And there are a lot workshops, meetings related to introduce alien species in Indonesia. There are some recommendations so far. First is identify an inventory of IAS, including definition, classification, and loss impact. And they are also recommending to have database development, including like originality, distributions, biology, ecology, benefit, and determinant of IAS to the people. And the third one is to consider IAS because it is necessary to decide what are the risks and benefit based on convention on biological diversity. And the fourth one is actually inventory and reviewing of law and regulation that related to introduce alien species. And the fifth one is improving and developing research activities on all IAS aspects in order to respond the issues in the national, regional, and international level, set up the networking among government, and then set up bilateral, regional, and international collaboration. So to revealing the invasive species, we do monitor biodiversity monitoring. So this process like determining the status and tracking the changes in living organisms and the ecological complexes of which they are a part. So this process is measuring the progress towards global targets for reducing the rate of biodiversity loss, depend and monitoring species abundance, threats of extinctions, and the role of ecosystem services. So so far we do like conventional biomonitoring. So this is related to the method that commonly used for monitoring biota or organisms. Like they are referring to direct observations. So we go to the field, doing diving and doing visual observations. And the conventional biomonitoring, this is like direct by observations. But the thing is, many micro and cryptic organisms are not observed during these observations. And there are mismatch of time and the emergence of organisms causes an inaccuracy of biodiversity assessment. There are also some challenges in the form of field conditions because sometimes we just go to the field and the bad weather happens and then you cannot just go to dive. And the estimated field observation also takes taking longer. And the thing is in the visual observations that we need a special expertise in the identifying organisms, and there are many potential activities are invasive and disrupt the ecosystem. So as you can see from these pictures, probably you cannot see the non-indigenous species, non-native or alien species, because they are living together with the in the natural habitat. So many of the non-indigenous species spread to a new environment accidentally, while some other species are intentionally introduced by human to a new habitat in many different pathways. And also here in the pier, also we can see many falling organisms attached to the concrete pier here. So there are many potential species are from non-indigenous species coming to this area, but we don't know actually what is there. Another one is actually needs to be uh, reconsider is using like the biomonitoring in such um, uh, uh, I forgot the name of this um, the structure in the sea like the offshore mining, and then you can see many falling organisms attached, and then the regulations is actually you cannot approach the structure because it is prohibited. So it is really impossible to monitoring the biodiversity around this area. Another one that we can consider for biomonitoring, and then sometimes underestimate, is actually the submerge of rehabilitation structure, such as the biorock structure here. Probably we can monitor the invasive species by seeing the falling organisms attached to the structure. So I will introduce the environmental DNA metabarcoding. This method is um, this method is quite new, introduced in Indonesia, uh, because you only bring like a bottle in such area, and then you just bring probably now we can bring the syringe and then the filter to the area, and then we just filter it in the field. Then we can processing further. And why we use this environmental DNA metabarcoding, because based on our experience that this is reduced survey time and has little or negative impact on the ecosystem because we just only take waters and we can directly processing by filtering using different vacuum pump, like peristaltic pump, and then there are the identifications of species from DNA sequences is related relatively easy then accurate, and we don't have to have like taxonomy background, for example, and many varieties of aquatic species may be detected from a single water sample. And the other beneficial by doing eDNA biomonitoring, because our eDNA collections can be revisited and then can be monitored, and then we can find the presence or absence of rare threatened indicator and invasive species, and then we can provide assessment related to biodiversity. So this is the situations when doing sampling underwater or above water, and then we just directly filtering in the field using different methodology or equipment, and then we just bring home the small tube of filtered water. And then this water collected from various depths, can be from surface, in the mid water or the bottom, or from the sediment. And then the laboratory analysis is kind of like cooking. So we just following the recipe, and then we do extraction, PCR, and in our lab at IPB right now, we have like aluminum sequencing, so we can process the samples from 3 to 7 days, and then we get a really huge amount of data. And then we can analyze the data, comparing our sequence data to several databases, including like BOLT systems, EMBRAME, to the invasive species specialized group, and then World Register of Introduced Marine Species, and then from World Registers of Marine Introduced Species, and Global Invasive Species Database, for example. So now I would like to introduce you some of our studies related to molecular research in Indonesia and using environmental DNA and DNA barcoding. These studies revealing a native, introduced, and invasive species. And then we can see like early detection of marine organisms, and then we can illuminate marine biodiversity hotspot in Indonesia. The first studies here just published in biodiversity and conservation in 2021, just recently. This environmental DNA metabarcoding now is an evolving tool that can provide broader assessments of marine biodiversity. And then now we are processing and preparing, comparing the visual census methods that we have been gathering so far. So this will provide like conservation priorities, support fisheries management. So in this study, we conducted a study using DNA metabarcoding to understand the distribution of marine biodiversity across Indonesia and to investigate the abundance. So this the bar plot of kingdom from all sampling locations based on reef abundance. So the bar plot constructed based on phyla contributes more than 2% of the relative abundance of each sample. So in this study, a total more than 13 million reads corresponding to more than 23,000 unique sequence belonging to the phyla Chordata, Mollusca, and Echinodermata that generated from CO1 amplicons from 92 seawater eDNA samples from 9 locations and 17 sites. And as you can see here, the green bar is unattained taxa. So there are still a lot opportunity to explore or describe the marine biodiversity from three majority phyla in Indonesia. So this one is a barcode of phylum from all sampling locations based on read abundance from A figure, and then taxa abundance from B figure. The overall 45% of reads identified to species level, while 55% are classified as unidentified taxa. And interestingly, that the percentage of unidentified taxa was similar between two locations with distinct characteristics representing eastern and western part of extreming of the sampling locations. And then despite of relatively poor rate of assignment to species level, our results highlight unprecedented level of marine biodiversity and strong differences in species composition. As you can see here, we can illuminate different um, taxa which are really rare observed during visual observations, including like Himantura valgus, Pirna lewini, Rhincodontippus, and Anoxipristis cuspidata. So this can bring us a big picture of Indonesian marine biodiversity and also some other invasive species. And this is I presented our work in Banda together with Maraika and also Joanna, who also here. This is we we know that despite being well-recognized issue, introduction of non-native marine species are still underestimated topic in highly biodiverse developing countries. That's why we are developing and starting this project to raise awareness, training, and collaborations between institutions in Indonesia. So what we found actually, we recorded like 66 different non-coral specimens in the following communities of a remote group of islands here in Banda. This is mainly the taxa of Porifera, Tunicata, and also Mollusca, which are known to include notorious in invasive species. And this study observed that none of the identified species known to be invasive in the region, but several were cryptogenic or considered to have very broad global distribution trend that can potentially include part of all the Indonesian archipelago. So these studies also observe one species like Asidian, the Demnum mole. This can be quickly settled and spread in the blank substrate. So this study also observed that study. And our other studies also found that the beta diversity also significantly show the differences between areas in Indonesia. And to engage strategically positioning the researchers across Indonesia with the tools needed to provide solutions for coral reef fisheries, we also establishing this method in Kepulauan Seribu. So this study by following Sabuk Nusantara, a ferry coming from Jakarta to Seribu Islands, and what we found actually here that from Tanjung Priok, Untung Jawa, and Harapan we compared the taxa, and what we found like going to the north that we have high species richness and species diversity, and they are significantly different. And what we found actually, the percentage of the introduced non-invasive and introduced invasive are more than local species. The species coming from different countries, including like Potamovirgus, Antiporadium, and other species coming from the Europe and also New Zealand. And from the recent observations that there are published reef sites in Seribu Islands that the coral killing sponge Tergios has invaded the Seribu Islands, and this is a report I would like to highlight because this is very fascinating in the coral reefs, and this is how it looks like when Terpios oceanota overgrows corals. Large species are covered with the black spawns, sometimes for many months or even years. And in the Terpios oceanota in the Southeast Asia, uh, we searched some literature and found that there are seems to be south to west westward invasions of coral reefs by the sponges spreading out from Guam, where it was originally found in 1973. And one of our also international collaborator, Tom Shields, in the he is a professor in the Guam. Uh, Also, we can observe he observed mass occurrence coincide with mass occurrence of multicellular filamentous cyanobacteria. And there is like actually a rather complex interaction between invading sponges, overgrowth, and cyanobacteria. And we know that climate change can possibly affect on all three players in sponge, coral, and cyanobacteria. And this will be threatening the coral reefs because there are other and anthropogenic impacts. And there are actually a potential immensely complex of the impact of the marine biodiversity threatened by sponge invasions. And there are some status prior our research before that there are some accumulating reports on invasions of the coral killing sponge, and but lack of knowledge on extent of threat, invasion pathways, invasion driving factors, mechanisms of coral killing, ecological interaction of the sponge, and possible contractions. So we just published our data, our observation in 2017 that Terpios oceanota across Indonesian archipelago, including in Seribu Islands, in Belanda, Kayu Angin Bira, and we also saw in Pulau Tunda in the Sunda Strait, in Banten Bay. We also observed in Natuna, in Riau Islands, in South China Sea, and in Maluku, in Pulau Babar. We also observe a persistent of Terpios oceanota outbreaks in Indonesian coral reef. Like in Balikpapan Bay, we visited in November 2013 and June 2015 in A, and outbreak sites in Dapur Island, Thousand Islands, originally reported from a survey conducted in August 2011 by the Fogg et al. In 2013, and we visited again in these sites in 2015, and they are still there. And this is our in review publications with our collaborators in Taiwan, in Indo-Pacific researchers. So we use CO1 and ITS2 to produce similar data, and then we produce similar statistical parsimony networks that showing dominant haplotype comprised of several mutational steps evident among sequences from specimen. As you can see here, we have like a number of specimen and sampling locations across Indo-Pacific. Then we can show the importance of Indonesian sites in the distributions of Terpios oceanota. So this is showing that since its first discovery in Guam, occurrence and outbreaks of Terpios oceanota have been reported along the South Eurasia marine ecoregions toward to the South China Sea oceanic islands, Torres Strait in northern Great Barrier Reef, marine ecoregions in the Coral Triangle, including in Malaysia and Indonesia, and more recently into the Indian Oceans. So, to concluding my presentations, the eDNA can be used, or molecular tools can be used as a biomonitoring. As I mentioning that the eastern part of Indonesia, such Raja Ampat, is important for biodiversity. But western part of Indonesia has a lot unique diversity in need of protection as well. And DNA barcoding and EDNA meta barcoding provide valuable complementary baseline for biodiversity information. And a combination of sampling methods can be recommendations for similar studies in understudied high biodiversity areas or high anthropogenic pressures. And we highlight that invasive species is increasingly important threats to native species and biodiversity, especially in Indonesia. Invasive species can affect native ecosystem through numerous pathways that are not mutually exclusive. Invasive species also need to be managed because and probably can be managed when we know the invader has established, and then the prevention of invasion can be a key for future management. I think that's all my presentations. I hope that you can. I think you hear the storm in Bogor, a big rain right now happening. So thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to the discussions. Thank you very much.